busier that day because he had talked about how that he would meet the PS, he would meet the directors, he would meet CC, and so on and so forth. So when we draw conclusions, all right, or when we want to induce or want to say we are inferring, I mean making inference, we need to have first-hand access to what people have said, especially when it has to do with a matter with public interest angle coming with it, such as this one right now. Okay, let's look at the pilots for you. That's our next paper this morning. The pilot has a big story right on the front page of it here. It says flood disaster with several riders there. No fewer than 3,000 persons died in Libya flood disaster, 5,000 missing, 7,000 injured. Home to 100,000 persons, multi-story buildings on riverbanks collapsed. More than 300 victims buried Monday. Greater number feared lost in river. It's a calamity of epic proportions, says UN official. That's a very starred and gory story you will find on page 8 of the Nigerian Pilot. Former Bayelsa legislators endorsed Governor Diri for a second term. We understand that the election in Bayelsa State, that is the gubernatorial election, is just around the corner, and many of the gladiators in that state have now thrown their hats in the ring across political divide. Let's take it down a little to the bottom of the page, the front page, that is, of the Nigerian Pilot. Ondo Governor, no blackmail can dent my relationship with Akeredolu. That's the deputy governor there talking. Ondo deputy governor, no blackmail can dent my relationship with Akeredolu. Army to benefit from FG's payments of group life assurance. The president were told by the chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Lagbaja, yesterday that the president had given a directive, very clear directive, for group life assurance to be paid to deceased officers' families. We'll increase domestic financing for health sector, says Shetima. We'll increase domestic financing for health sector, says Shetima. By the way, the vice president now is on his way to Cuba to represent President Bola Tinubu there at the G77 conference, where he'll be having conversations centering on issues regarding global concerns, poverty, climate change, economic issues, so on and so forth. Vigilante Group of Nigeria holds conference to enhance national security. MSME, 1.3 million persons in 17 states, FCT to benefit. Okay. At the top of the front page, just immediately beneath the Nigerian Pilot, it says, Governor Alia warns politicians against security matters. You have details of that story on page 7 of the Nigerian Pilots. FG sets to launch, that's a whole lot, very, very humongous project. Again, that's on page 7 of the Nigerian Pilots, all right? This day is our next port of call this morning. This day newspaper, the star headline here on This Day newspaper reads, and 936 people die in boat accidents in 3 years. That's a whole lot of numbers that we have lost to boat mishaps in 3 years. Then the good thing now is we understand the president, that's President Bola Tinubu, has now ordered that the immediate and remote causes of these boat accidents should be unraveled, all right? But again, this is a clarion call to relevant authorities to help improve safety on our waterways, especially now that there's so much of a lamp, or if you like, set lamp, being beamed on the so-called blue economy, all right? Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper as well for you. Federal government, that's on the Nation newspaper, top left of it, above the nameplate. Federal government targets inflation cuts with 50% FAC savings, cargoes for evacuation to decongest Lagos ports. All right, but there's one more here. It says a flood storm kills over 5,000 in Libya town. Trade between Nigeria and EU grows to 45 billion euros. That's a whole lot of volume. Otedola hails Tinubu for resolving UAE visa ban, flights resumption. And then here it says burial for Akintola Williams next month. President, others mourn icon. Crisis rocks Sondo Exco over Akeredolu deputy field. But then again, the deputy has said, I mean, Datiwa has said that, Ayedatiwa, I should say, has said there's no amount of blackmail that will strain his relationship with his principal, that is the governor. Recall that Governor Akeredolu had left the country sometime in July, where he had been receiving treatment overseas, and now he just got back a few days ago, and all we're hearing is some bad blood between him and his deputy. But his deputy has continually said there's no bad blood between both of them, and continues to reaffirm his loyalty to the governor. All right, governor fires deputy governor's aides. Yedatiwa remain loyal. Commissioners SA's G3. Okay, that's on the front page of the Nation newspaper today. Let's see what we have at the bottom of the newspaper. First Lady donates 500 million naira to 500 families in Plateau. Wike moves to sanitize Abuja land administration. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper today. Then on the front page of the Leadership, we have a picture, one we hear above the nameplate, a picture of the U.S. President Joe Biden. It says U.S. Congress begins impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden. That's a development. Some persons have said, especially those who are on the left, all right, that it's a tit for tat reaction, because they believe, for reasons best known to them, that former President Trump's predicament is orchestrated and being midwifed by the Democrats. So they see this as a move by Republicans to even up with the Joe Biden side. But again, don't forget that this is all part of electioneering in the U.S. Of course, it has started, and election is next year. President Trump wants to run in 2024 because the Constitution allows him to do a second term. But then he has a myriad of court cases to answer to. All right, at least he has court cases in no less than 2-3 states, including in Florida and New York. All right, but in the end, we'll see how it turns out, who eventually will run with Joe Biden, because there's also a question mark now about whether or not Joe Biden should stand for election come 2024 on account of his health. Basically, for Trump, it is criminal allegations that now form the basis of his eligibility or otherwise to run. There are those now saying that if all of these indictments come to fruition, if they are proven in court, he will likely end up in jail, which obviously will make a mess of his chances of running as president, for president next year. But then fingers are crossed. We'll watch the developments as they unfold. Okay, Tinubu orders probe of both mishaps in Niger Adamawa. That's on page 12. As schools resume, parents, guardians groan over fee increase amid rising inflation. Fears heighten over possible rise in dropouts out of school children, while we are increasing fees. School operators, private school teachers lament low wages, delayed salaries. If you look at the right end of today's Leadership newspaper, says UN NEDC to resettle 2.2 million IDPs, that is internally displaced persons in Nigeria. That's on page 61. 5,000 feared dead after Libya floods. Wike probes $600 million garnishee order against FCT. That's a big story. We understand that the FCT minister now has started investigation into this garnishee order and all of the monies being mentioned here. We're hearing 600 million, according to the Leadership newspaper this morning. All right. Then here it says, above the nameplates, halt ceding of Adamawa land to Cameroon now. Reps tell FG. Our last paper this morning is a Business AM. All right, that's our last paper. Let's look at Business AM and see what it says. All right, Nigeria elections 2023, economist sees emerging political order reshaping Nigeria's future. Reforms to engender democratic effectiveness seeks direction articulated for diaspora investments, external internal liquidity for exchange rates stability, a non-partisan capability for elected persons. Finance and investment, Nigeria's 1.2 trillion naira trade surplus rebound. Okay, comments addressing stress in rail service. Analysts fear economic losses on INEC rescheduling of elections. These are all stories this morning coming from the Business AM. And that's a wrap here on the paper segment this morning. Do well to read up these headlines, and indeed the details of all of the headlines are brought your way this morning, so you can stay ahead of your game. But we understand that Labour is again threatening an indefinite strike, which, according to their schedule, is likely going to happen anytime in the middle of next week. And they say this is on account of the fact that the government has not responded to their demands, which include palliative measures on account of the removal of fuel subsidy, and they're also saying that the federal government has not looked at the issues of wage. In fact, one of the allegations is that the federal government has not returned to the negotiation table the entire time. But then recall that just last week, Labour had gone on a 2-day warning strike, and that partially, to a very large extent, had grounded the economy. I mean, economic, social activities had been grounded, at least partially, within those 2 days. We know of cities across this country that didn't have lights because workers, for the most part, in the electricity sector had downed tools at the time. The question perhaps is, can Nigeria afford another strike, whether warning or indefinite? And then ultimately, how do we end this culture of incessant strike? All right. Are we going to continue to pin blames on Labour, pin blames on the government, or are we just going to be, quote unquote, man enough to come to a dialogue and then have closure as far as this matter is concerned? It's a conversation we will continue to have here at Global Television. The show continues. Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.